Today, we're talking about a text so powerful, so sharp, it's been compared to a diamond that can cut right through the fabric of illusion itself.
But let's start with a question that, let's be honest, we've all asked ourselves. In a world that's constantly buzzing and pulling for our attention, how do you actually tame that restless mind? How do you quiet the nonstop chatter in your own head?
Well, it turns out this is not a new problem, not by a long shot. About 2,500 years ago, a monk named Subhuti asked the Buddha this exact same thing. And the Buddha's answer, well, it became the foundation for one of the most mind-bending and important texts in Zen Buddhism, the Diamond Sūtra. So this is where our journey begins, with this really urgent question. And it's not just some abstract philosophical thought experiment, it's a real, practical problem from someone on a spiritual path, trying to figure out how to master his own mind.
Here's the question, straight from the text. Now, a bodhisattva, that's someone who makes this incredible vow to become enlightened for the sake of every other living thing. So what Subhuti is really asking is, okay, I've made this huge commitment, but how do I actually control the one thing that always seems to get in the way, my own crazy mind? This is the central problem the entire sutra is here to solve.
And the Buddha's first answer is, well, it's a real head-scratcher. It's a paradox. It's designed to completely short-circuit our normal way of thinking, right from the get-go. So stick with me here. Let's break this down. First, the Buddha says you have to take on this unbelievably compassionate task. You have to vow to liberate every single being in the entire universe. Every single one. Lead them all to ultimate peace. It's this beautiful, massive, all-encompassing goal. But then comes the twist. He says that even after you've accomplished this impossible feat, after you've saved all these countless beings, you have to understand that, in reality, no one was ever saved at all. An infinite number of beings get liberated, and yet 0 beings get liberated. Right? How on earth can that make any sense? It sounds like a total contradiction. Are you saving everyone, or are you saving no one? The answer, it turns out, lies in what we think a being actually is in the first place. The Buddha explains that the paradox only exists because we are attached to what he calls the 4 illusory notions. We're clinging to the fixed ideas of a separate self, a distinct person, an individual living being, and a finite lifespan. But the sutra teaches that these are just concepts. They're not solid realities. And if there's no fixed, separate self to begin with, then who is there to be saved? Okay, so that's pretty abstract. How does this idea actually apply to our lives? Well, the sutra makes it super practical with the example of giving. It shows us how to act in the world without getting tangled up in these illusions. The sutra makes this really key distinction. On one side, you have attached giving. That's when we give something, but we're expecting a thank you or recognition, or we just want to feel good about ourselves. The merit from that is limited. But then there's unattached giving. That's when you give without any concept of a giver, a receiver, or even the gift itself. You just give. And the result of that kind of selfless action, it's profound. The merit or the positive energy from that act is said to be as vast and immeasurable as the sky. It's totally boundless because the act isn't limited by your ego, by that idea of a self who is doing the great deed. This leads us straight to the sutra's deepest, sharpest teaching, the part that cuts right to the very nature of reality. If the self is an illusion, what does that mean for the world around us? What about all the forms and appearances we see every day? So the Buddha poses another test to his disciple. See, in ancient texts, it was believed that a fully enlightened being had 32 special physical signs. So the Buddha asks him, Subhuti, can you see the real me just by looking at these special physical marks? And Subhuti, who's been following along this whole time, just nails it. He gets the lesson. He says, no, absolutely not, because those marks, as special as they are still just forms. They're not the ultimate reality. And that leads to probably the most famous, most powerful statement in the entire Diamond Sūtra. All that has form is illusory. If you can look at the world of forms, a chair, a tree, another person, even the Buddha himself, and see through to their true formless nature, that's when you'll see reality. That's when you'll see the Buddha. So after all that deep philosophical work, the sutra doesn't end with another complex argument. It concludes with this beautiful, kind of haunting poem. It's a final summary of this whole way of seeing the world, a reminder of how we might look at our own lives. The sutra gives us these final images as a lens. It's asking us to think of everything we experience, everything we cling to, as being just like these things. A star that vanishes at dawn, a bubble that pops in a stream, a flash of lightning, a flickering candle, a phantom, and a dream. Each one is there, and then it's gone.
And that's the final, brilliant cut of the diamond. The text leaves us with this powerful idea, and a final question to really sit with. If this whole reality is as fleeting and unreal as a dream, that doesn't mean we should just give up. It asks us to think about what really matters and how we might act with true wisdom and compassion, both inside the dream and when we finally awaken.